the Railways Minister. Always a pleasure to have you here. Mr. Prabhu, without wasting any more time, let me first welcome you on behalf of CII and BTVI for sparing your time to be here. Fascinating presentation that was given by Mr. Gupta here with some of the big details of the kind of transformational activity that you are trying to pursue for the railways. The topic of the session is smart railways, and I think all the elements of the steps that you have already put in place and that are proposed to be put in paint a very good picture. I'm just going to start with a small instance. 10 years back, if one was sitting with a railways minister and hearing a presentation, I think personally for me this kind of detailed presentation is an absolute first. It reveals the mindset of a customer-focused organization, or organization which is looking at its financials as the most important thing, and the breakup of all the proposals, Mr. Gupta, personally I think was a very fascinating, illuminating way to present it. I want to start with you, Mr. Prabhu, and there are some people who want to congratulate you. Thank you so much for that. The key focus that seems to come through some of the elements that you are putting in place is to restore the financial viability and health of the Indian Railways. For years, when the Railways budget used to be presented separately, the one item number that we used to be looking on for was the operating ratio, and it was a given that it would deteriorate. For journalists, it used to just be a matter of finding the latest number, and the flash line on television screens used to be ready. You just had to put in that negative number, knowing fully well that it will deteriorate. The second thing that we used to look for was how many new projects or railway lines have been executed, even as previous ones have remained incomplete. And the third element used to be how much freight charges have been raised, because industry participants and people who are here would look at the negative impact on their balances. This seems to be changing. However, one of the details that I noticed from the presentation was that as far as a percentage is concerned, only 50% is the target as in the long term for reserved passengers. 50% of your total berth capacity is proposed to remain reserved, and it will rise from 37% now. I want to ask you, Mr. Prabhu, this aim of reservation, a reserved berth on demand, on tap, is something that you have spoken about in the past also. When do you think that kind of scenario can emerge for the traveling public in this country? When do you think reservation will be available on tap, on demand, sir?
Of course, I'm very happy that my colleague has already done a presentation, so some of these points that he has addressed. But just to tell you, why, which he made a presentation, I'll just repeat that point for everybody to understand. Why is that we are not able to give reservation on demand? This is supply-demand mismatch. Why there is a supply-demand mismatch? That number again, this will be very revealing number, so I am repeating again, which of course Mr. Gupta must have presented.
Yeah.
But something interesting. Our freight gone up by 1344%, 1344%. Passengers increased by 1642%, and route kilometers increased by 23%. Now tell me, if you want to consult, probably you can save a lot of millions of dollars of fees rather than hiring a consultant to understand the problem of railways. Is this very simple. If there is so much of increase in traffic, both of passengers and the freight, and the infrastructure increase only 23%, this is a result. And therefore, only way we can address this issue is by augmenting the infrastructure. Again, just one more point, which I'm sure he would have done, and bulk of it is in the congested. So more than 100% of the lines are, some of the high density network are operating at more than 100% network. Now he has been a general manager, there are others who have been operating. Can any railway be operated at more than 100% capacity? Even anybody will tell you thumb rule should not be even 85-90%. We are operating that percentage. So what has happened is, we always did not bother about the mechanism through which it will work. but we kept promising something which was never possible to fulfill. So somehow we were pressurizing the system to deliver which was impossible. So passengers reservation on demand will happen because firstly, we are putting the investment at 8,50,000 crore. Where is it going? So this is going into this high density network. And if it is high density, again, without hiring a consultant, you can know that what you need to do is put money where there is a demand. So if there is a one line which is congested, operating at more than 100%, put second, if second, third, fourth. So we are exactly doing that. And in fact, again, happy to say that almost 16,500 kilometers of doubling has been sanctioned in last 2.5 years, as opposed to just about 20,000 plus in the last 75 years. Now, where are we going? So when these projects will get completed, obviously there will be capacity augmentation. When the capacity augmentation takes place, we can handle more passengers. Alongside, we have really put on fast track the completion of dedicated freight corridor. Today, 2/3 of the tracks are used for passengers when they give only 1/3 of the money. And 1/3 of the tracks are used for freight, and always freight is the last priority. Everything freight, let the other one go. So which gives us 2/3 of the revenue. So when the dedicated freight corridor comes in, there will be a dedicated, most not all, but major trunk routes will operate on dedicated freight corridor, so that passengers traffic will get free, the tracks will be free for passengers, as well as this capacity augmentation that will happen. Then automatically there will be a reservation on demand. So this is why we are thinking something like close to 4 to 5 years, we should be able to. That's why 2019 end we are targeting dedicated freight corridor, which was an uphill task. In the last 6-7 years, whatever tenders we had given, more than that we have given in the course of last 9 months. Not more, double or triple of that in the last 6 or 9 months. So this is what will bring in the change. So what you are asking is a very valid question. When it will happen? I think this should happen in about 2020, we are saying, around that time.
Absolutely, and I think that is a very important point to take note of. What you are really saying is that once the existing system capacity is freed up through the dedicated freight corridor to handle passenger demand, you will see a situation where virtually a reservation on demand will be available in another 3 to 4 year time. The second bit that I want you to focus on, because you have spoken about capacity expansion, is the speed expansion. Now, the Indian Railways, despite its vast network, is also amongst the slowest railways in the world, given the amount of passenger traffic and freight traffic that it handles. Provide us some details as to what will be the average or aggregate speed expansion over the next 2-3 years, sir.
You know, today, firstly, because what I did was, first I presented a white paper to the Parliament, identifying all these problems. Because if there is no proper diagnostics,
which made you a little unpopular with certain people.
First 2 budgets, as well as the third one, which I didn't present, but which is in continuation of the same philosophy, are in line with those diagnostics. So we are trying to address those challenges. So speed is again the result of, today also we can operate probably at even 20% higher speed than this. If these networks were freed from this. Today there are so many speed restrictions, we are not able to actually repair the tracks, only because there is no time to repair the track. If you want to repair the track, obviously you have to block it. You are seeing in Delhi airport when the runway is getting repaired for 4 hours, 5 hours every day for a long time, they block the track. But that is only small portion. You can imagine thousands of trains running every day, and we are not able to even stop it for some time. So maintenance is not there, so that's why speed restrictions are there. If you remove all this, even today we can increase the speed. But the target of high speed is of a 3-4 kind. One is to increase the average speed of railways. And this will happen largely through capacity augmentation, also through better signaling. In fact, the person is also here who is actually, we are looking at signaling in a significant way and telecommunication strategies to do that. Thirdly, we are also bringing in semi-high-speed railways, so 2 major routes, Delhi-Mumbai, Delhi-Kolkata, which handles bulk of the traffic. There we are trying to increase the speed to about 200 kilometers, for which 20,000 crores has already been set aside, and we'll try to invest that money into that. High-speed railway, which will be, of course, one standalone project for the time being, that will also increase the speed to about 350, that is from the Japanese. But he is working on something very interesting, where there is a possibility of now all these technologies that we are talking about are going to be redundant. So this is another challenge that everybody has to face, all businesses have to face, is the redundancies which will come because of technological innovation. So one of the things that is going to happen is this present network of tracks and the kind of rolling stock we make today is all going to be not necessarily be relevant to future times. So there something like aviation technology using hyperloop or something which can go even at 600 kilometers plus. So not to lose out on that opportunity, we have actually done RFQ to find out how many of such companies can come and co-develop that product in India with us. Because once they develop, they get the IPRs of that. Once you develop IPR, then only choice you have is to import it. And when you import it, you lose out because the main value chain of any business like this is in the IPR. So if you lose out on the IPR, so that is another thing we are doing that will bring in something like 600 kilometers plus. So one is a long-term vision, 600 kilometers. One, the project which is already under implementation to take it to 200 kilometers. In fact, today, some of the product that we are using, Gatiman Express, is about 170 kilometers. We are going to have Tejas, which will be launched in another 1 month or 2 months maximum. That will again be at the speed higher than this. So these are the products. If you have, I request you to please come and travel with us. Not because you are a friend, we'll make sure that you travel in comfort. And all of you are invited to join and just see. You will not believe that this is the Indian Railway that you are traveling by. So many of them have said that this is we started a Vistadome, one small one, that is in Andhra Pradesh, which is, they are saying, is it a Switzerland that is a photocopied or something, photoshopping? So this is something which you are doing. So I think every speed will definitely increase. There are medium-term projects like high-speed railway, and a little bit medium to long is the something which is high-speed of different kind.
Mr. Prabhu, I am aware of the fact that when you did the first substantial reform in our power sector many years back in your earlier avatar, you did a complete sort of internal turnaround. You faced a lot of political pressure and you handled that. Over the last 2-3 years, one also hears your fellow members in parliament complain about your approach where you do not sanction new lines under pressure. You do not agree to demands just because there is some powerful leader who is asking you of this. And your approach has been to a large extent to see where economics dictates this entire progress. My question specifically is that for years, the public impression was that the balance sheet of the railways was dictated by financial jugglery. And it was designed to please and not necessarily oriented towards performance. Tell our audience here and those who are watching you right now on our channel, how would you describe the philosophical approach that you have put in as a chartered accountant who understands balance sheets to make the railways balance sheet a truly transparent and healthy one?
You know, it's a very good question. Let me just confine to balance sheet. I'll come to the other issues, but very important one. Typically, we must have two streams or two approaches to make railways balance sheet better. One is increase income. So we are working on, as I told you, all this freight augmentation, freight policies where we reduce the freight for the first time. We are also giving concessions, discounts to people. We are allowing them to, the private freight train can be operated with containers. That's something which you already come out with this. So all this will bring in more freight to us. In fact, what has happened in the railways is that there are 10 commodities on which we are always relying. And the railways, when we are making a budget for the railways, we'll ask the 10 customers. Obviously, this is any business will do. If you are supplying an OEM manufacturer, you are supplying to somebody, you'll ask the main manufacturer, what are you needed? So based on that, we'll create a capacity for your own shop floor. So railways were doing 10 commodities. How much coal will handle? Coal ministry will tell you so much because it's ministry. Steel will tell you so much. Cement will tell you so much. And based on that, you will make your own projection. So these 10 commodities in the last few years has suffered a lot. The expansion in this core sector has not been as good as they themselves thought it will happen. So obviously we are the sufferers of that. 1.2 billion tons of cargo. First time railway was willing to handle and ready to handle, but that 1.2, so we created a capacity. So all the time the complaint used to be that we are not getting coaches, the wagons. Now there is no such complaint. In fact, the wagons are more than what the demand can be handled. So everybody is saying that we are getting it. So one is to increase the freight revenue substantially by diversifying your freight basket. So today's 10 commodities, we are going for 40 commodities. And we have already prepared strategies for that. We are working on that. If you must have seen, first nine months was a very bad month for the railways, probably one of the worst. But despite that, in last 3 months, all this new initiative that we took has helped us to pick the traffic a bit. And this April also seems to be keeping the trend alive. So I think we'll be able to take it to a new level. But this is one. The second is, first time we are doing is a non-fare revenue. which has increased by 72% this year, but it's hardly anything. The target is to take it to about 25 to 30 to 35,000 crores in the course of next 10 years. Because all of these are in the process. I think you also might have made a presentation of that. The third element of this is to reduce the expenditure. Now, how do you reduce the expenditure? The bulk of the expenditure, 60-70%, is salaries and pension, which has increased by 36,000 crores this year.
Because of the pay commission.
Pay commission. Bonus Act was amended, so the ceiling on bonus was removed. The largest employees are with the railways. Obviously, the railways had to bear the brunt of it. Just to put in perspective, about 1 point of operating ratio is equivalent to 1,800 crores. So this 36,000 crores amounts to 20 operating ratio point. So just imagine, even this year, we didn't have to take the burden of pay commission and this. What would have been the operating ratio? It would have been in 70s. So I think this is something, so we are doing non-fair revenue target. That is another part. Then to make sure that cost is reduced substantially. In fact, Mr. Goyal, who is sitting here, we launched a complete digital supply chain, which would mean, and this is something which I would really request you to look at it, this probably entire operation, right from placing order, right up to making payment, will be now through digital supply chain. This will again reduce the cost in a bit in terms of material consumption. But bulk still remains, the salaries and pension, that's a human cost. So we are done, Deloitte, they have given us a report that is not addressing all aspects of it, but still we are trying to work on something which will improve it. We are going in for enterprise resource planning. Mr. Chandrasekhar, I don't know whether he is here now, he was a chairman of Tata Group, but when he was a head of TCS, he said that this is of course the largest ERP anybody is doing, and the saving could be in a region of 50-60,000 crores. That's his estimate. I'm not even giving my number. This is something which, and in fact when we called the expert the other day, they said the same thing. So you can imagine increasing the income from the traditional sources as well as from non-fair revenue, reducing the cost of all items, including energy, which is the second highest cost. We are reduced by 4,000 crores, and we have created a complete plan to reduce it by 41,000 crores in the course of next 10 years, for which we'll go for solar 1,000 megawatts. We already started using open access, which was part of Electricity Act, which had introduced to the Parliament. So we are reducing the cost. We are also going in for energy audits, energy efficiency, and all of this would bring in saving in the energy. So on one side, we'll reduce the cost. On the other side, we'll try to increase the income. So based on all this, I think over a period of time, we should be able to have a very healthy balance sheet.
25% of your planned expenditure over the next 5 years, which is 8,56,000 crore as the top number, is on a network congestion, and another 25% is on network expansion. If you were to look at the cost saving numbers that you say, it works out to an average of 4,000 crore per year, which is not very substantial. My concern is that in all of this, do you really feel that the revenue side of the equation, which is what impacts you negatively, at what point at all will you be able to balance it?
You know, see, this is one big challenge for the railways. Like the corporates have to bother about their bottom line all the time on a quarterly basis if you're a listed company. You have to obviously bother about making sure that how much is the EPS, earning per share, because that's how your share prices will be decided in the market. People try to compare that with the railways. So they expect railways also to do as good or as better than what the corporates do. At the same time, people expect railways to make sure that everything that common man expects from the railways has to be done. People will expect that even obligation for reaching out to northeast, to southeast and west, but why not? We have to do that because that's something, an obligation that you are taken because you are part of the government of India. So that we have to do.
For example, this extremely expensive railway line to Kashmir, which where the loading factor is very poor, one would say.
So, there are public service obligations which railways carry. In terms of revenue lost, it is as high as 30,000 crores. So just imagine, and that's why I asked the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy to prepare a proper paper on it, so that it should be not I am claiming it. Let it be done by an independent agency and also a very respected think tank, and try to come out with this. So we have to bear it. Everywhere in the world, the public service obligation is borne by the main exchange. So we have to work out some strategy. I'm 100% sure it is not possible for even the main budget to carry it entirely. So we are not even worried about that, because as I told you, despite that, despite carrying this public service obligation, we are trying to increase the non-fare revenue. We are strategizing to make sure that the lost freight revenue comes back to the railways. We are also making sure that the network expansion takes place and the augmentation of capacity takes place, so we will be able to handle more cargo, and also we will be able to take it at a faster pace. For example, if we started first timetable train for cargo train, because there is no timetable for train, how would somebody come back to the railways and say that, it will reach any time I want it to reach? It's not possible. So all of this combination of measures will make sure that railways will be able to get back the nodal share which they have lost over a long period of time. And one of the principal reasons for that is also the lack of investment, resulting into deterioration of services as well as asset quality, but also the lack of focus, where we want to really invest. So what you ask me is a very valid question. Sometimes I folded hand, I pray to my colleagues saying, please don't ask for new land, let us complete this task, because this is where we are going to get the future money. This is where is going to address the question. People don't understand. If you augment the capacity, and we are doing this network expansion exactly in the areas where there is a congestion, automatically average speed will go up, delays will go down, we'll have more time to prepare the track so that there will not be any safety issues will be properly addressed. We'll be able to handle more cargo in the shortest possible time. So most of the things that seems to be the end. People want to know punctuality is an issue, safety is an issue, efficiency is an issue, handling capacity is an issue, but all of this is related to this.
I want to ask you to tell our audience here the plans, or provide some more visibility and detailing into the freight corridors, which would be a massive investment opportunity. A lot of people in industry look forward to the railways as a entity with which they can cooperate, they can work together, they can do projects together, and obviously reap the benefits from that. 2 dedicated freight corridors, as Mr. Gupta told us, and another 3 in the pipeline. Suresh Prabhu ji, if you can just give some more color and visibility into what it will entail, and how do you see it panning out ultimately?
See, these 2 dedicated freight corridors are the ongoing projects. And as I said, they were lagging far behind the schedule. We are trying to push that a bit, quite a bit actually. World Bank also has said, because they were really very disappointed with the progress that was there earlier. So they are also expressed their satisfaction about the way it is going, but still we are hoping that we'll be able to complete by 2019. Land acquisition, main issues have been handled, most of this. We need to put feeder routes, because even if you put a main trunk dedicated freight corridor, then to get traffic from the catchment areas, we need to put the feeder routes, which is another area that we are now focusing on. But I think it should be, we are putting our whole focus for 2019 end, but maybe somewhere here, but we are on track. We announced 3 more dedicated freight corridor, which is at the planning stage. The board is looking at them. Also, first time what we are doing is, we are preparing a plan for the railways, like you are saying. Sometimes, we cater to a demand from a particular person, and depending upon how strong that person is, the demand will be met. We don't have a plan for the railway as a whole. In fact, incidentally, when I presented my first budget, many of the people came and told me that this is the first budget for the railways. Because otherwise the railways, the budget were for state, for constituency, for a person, for other interests, but this was the first for the railway. So how do you create a plan on the ground, not a vision, that vision we just saw, but on the ground plan, where you can see that we have 7,600 kilometers of coastline, so how do you connect the coast? We have so many new centers have emerged in the country. There were some industrial states have planned, tourism centers, some states have developed, or central government must have developed. So that's where the traffic will come from. That's our catchment area. So we are trying to create on the ground plan for the railways 2030, and we are doing it in a consultative process. I have written letters to all the chief ministers. We have created a website, so it will be very interactive. The idea would be that once we have this, then eventually it may not be implemented. This is a plan for 2030, but actually up to 2050 it should be valid. That's how we are preparing it. Once that is prepared, then all these questions, many times people ask whether I should connect this or not, will be properly answered. And this is not again prepared by some engineers in the railway board. This is prepared in consultation with almost all the stakeholders with a very interactive manner. So once that is done, this will also be helpful. So your question is very valid. Dedicated freight corridor, the first 2 which are already under implementation, east and west, and the other 3 which are at drawing stage, and the third one which is not dedicated freight corridor alone, but entire network planning for the railway as a whole, which is also happening, which is 2030 basis, but will be valid to 2050.
Given all of the plans that you are putting in place, and it's very clear that you are working on a longer term sort of vision for the railways, not just in the immediate term or immediately for the next election, that's very clear. By when do you think the financial challenges that the railways has grappled with for many years, Mr. Prabhu, will be over? I completely buy your point that it can't be run as a private sector entity chasing margins, but in terms of overall financial health, what is your own thought as to where you would be satisfied that now the railways is on a sustainable sort of track?
As I said, this non-fare revenue has started already coming in, but bulk of it should come in the next 2-3 years' time. I mean, they will start coming in a real good number. Like for example, we are trying to put 200,000 screens, which is digital display networks. So that will give us a lot of money. We are trying to use all soft assets of the railways and try to monetize them. That all the tenders are ready. In fact, one of the top consultants was advising her on this because railway didn't have a domain knowledge about it. So obviously we have to outsource it. So we are working on this. So these all will come. That is one part. So secondly, as I said, once we have the doubling and tripling, most of it should be completed, at least the critical ones, in the next 3 years' time, 3.5 years' time. Once that is completed, even more freight can come in. Also, when the dedicated freight corridor is completed, which will be again 2019 and hopefully, that again will give us an advantage over our competitors like road and others to get the nodal traffic back into the railways. With all this, the revenue should go up. Again, I keep my fingers crossed that there should not be another huge jump in our salaries and pension bill. If that doesn't happen...
But that will happen 10 years later.
So I think that's something which is externality to the railways. But barring that, I think this should really bring in about 3.5 years' time. You can see a substantial improvement of the railways' finances than what they have been. And as I told you, even today, if 1,800 crores is equivalent to one operating ratio point, it had been... Again, we need to really look at... I don't know, I mean, of course, you are one of our most informed journalists. The operating ratio itself, we need to think about looking at capturing railways' financial system in a more transparent way and in a more proper manner. So that's something also we need to look at so that we'll be able to judge the real financial situation of railways. So we are doing accounting reform in the railways. That's a major thing we already started doing, wherein we are trying to capture the outcomes, not after the outcome budget, after the expenditure is incurred and doing outcome, but starting with budgeting, expenditure, output and outcome. Also integrating management information system, costing and account bookkeeping and accounting into one. And that project already started in one division in Ajmer. We are going to go ahead with that and we are trying to take it at a faster pace. This will also bring in a lot of transparency. Will also give us a proper decision-making tool to understand where the money should be going, where we can make some money, where we are losing the revenue. All those tools can be available.
One of the points that I want to sort of challenge you on is your estimate of 28% of your 8,56,000 coming is debt, and you say another 15% will come from or another 30 odd percent, if I were to aggregate, will come from non-fare revenue. Given the experience of how the railways was not able to capitalize on the optic fiber revolution, and the start was made 15 years back, Mr. Prabhu, but very little in comparison to what has happened in terms of OFC rollout in the country, railways was only able to dip into it in a very small percentage. How are you so confident that you will be able to get non-fare revenue the way you are projecting?
As I said, whereas the Japanese railway, they make in the region about 25% plus on the non-fare revenue. Others are even smaller. But that's why we have kept a target at, while others we should keep it at target at the Japanese level. So where will we get his money from? So as I said, on board, we are starting a lot of products that will give us some revenue. We have digital entertainment that will give us some revenue. We are giving the entire, for example, there is a geography in which there is a housing colony, there is a station, everything. So we are going to bid out for the entire thing. You can do advertising and you can get it. The advantage of railway is our footfalls and our eyeballs. See, the footfalls and eyeballs are more than the global population, because every year, last year, the railway had about 8 billion people who traveled, took the round trips on the railway. So that's our advantage for the railway. Station redevelopment, again, is another source of getting that non-fare revenue target. So all of this, including data monetization, where we have just started the work. This is very early in the day, so I will not be able to even tell you how much we'll get and when we'll get. But that's something, another one, without compromising any privacy, we can get it. We have some of our PSUs. They can also be another way of raising resources. So I think there are these 30,000 crores, which will be, we are saying 10 years from now, which is very conservative because we don't want to commit something which will not happen. But I think over a period of next few years' time, the non-fare revenue will keep increasing. It has increased 72% this year already. So it will increase every year, year after year, and which will go to a decent level.
My last question to you, and I want to tell our audience that if any one of you follow the Railways Ministry on Twitter, there are two government agencies and departments. One is the Ministry of External Affairs, which is Sushma Swaraj ji, and the other is the Ministry of Railways, which are extremely responsive. 23 million passengers per day and 6,500 tweets. The response on Twitter seems to have become the defining image of the new railways, the smart, more responsive railways. Mr. Prabhu, how much time do you yourself devote to responding to customers' concerns on Twitter?
See, it all started with my using it myself. I was answering more or less all the tweets that I used to receive, as well as some people used to call me on phone also. So I used to do it all myself. But now we are institutionalized it. We are institutionalized it to an extent that we are saying that the divisions as well as zones must have handles and they must respond to it. As well as now, so it is all institutionalized. Even the railway board, there is an institutionalized mechanism. So I had still spent a lot of time. But now what we have done is, this complaint system, we have taken it to the next level. See, why is the cause of complaint? See, complaint redressal is one part. But if you identify the cause of complaint itself, that will not give rise to more complaints. So geography could be the cause of complaint, that Ajmer is a problem. Or it could be a function which is a problem, say catering is a problem. So we have started now doing management information system to understand where the complaint is coming from, what is the cause of complaint. In fact, I have told chairman as well as the member of the railway board that every day you must spend at least 1 hour to look at all this and try to take corrective action, which they are doing. So just imagine, this is a process evolving. See, the government, we never had a system like this, that on real-time basis we can address the complaint. And obviously, because we address the complaint, the number of complaints have gone up substantially. See, when there is no way that complaints are going to be addressed, why would you make a complaint? So therefore, this is a waste of my time. At least I didn't get a good cup of tea. But now making a complaint about cup of tea is going to lose me another tea. So that probably I could have had. So he is not going to bother about making complaints at all. But now, because we have started making complaints, we have started addressing complaints, we have started getting more and more complaints. So that's okay, fine. But now we are trying to do it, and therefore I said we are trying to take it to the MIS level. Also, we have delegated all the powers, as you know, to the general managers as well as the functional leaders. So that means that now most of the commercial decisions, most of the decisions are done at a division or general manager level. So why not they also address this complaint? And we are now, after delegation, there should be an accountability. So we have created key performance indicators, key KRS, key result areas, and each of those are very well identified. So I think now each of the general manager will have to report on that, and this will be one of the ingredients. As I said, see, this is a completely new culture in the railways or any government organization. So I'm not saying it has reached a perfection. It is a process in which we have to educate people. For example, when we delegated the powers for the first time, and he was the general manager in Sikandrabad, he must have been shocked to know, how can I deal everything? Because he's used to dealing with everything, and just his job was to sign it and send to the board. Right. So, but that is how we have lived in 30 years in railways. Right. So now when we delegate it completely, it is a very different experience for the people to understand how we are going to use it. But now I must really compliment my colleagues. They're responding well. It is going to take time, because they should not feel it was just by mistake a circular came that it is all delegated. Minister will again call back. So it is now institutionalizing. It is, people are getting used to it. So I think these complaints are also going to be integrated into these key performance indicators, and also becoming management information system as a tool to understand where and why the complaints are coming and how to take corrective action.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prabhu. Ladies and gentlemen, as you witnessed, this is a person who is going into the internals of the railways, not necessarily for political dividends, but for a strategic reset of India's largest entity in some ways. Thank you very much.